And you. Daddy! Trying to drink some coffee? I don't think you need coffee. It's hot. It's hot. Hello, my bookish friends. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Elizabeth. This is Reading Riley, and today we are doing our July wrap-up. Before we get started, if you all are interested in videos like this, talking about book things, mostly thrillers, some sci-fi, some fantasy, some romance, then I would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit the little bell notification if you want to be notified of my future videos. I post at least once a week. So let's get into this July wrap-up. It was kind of a weird month. We started out with Summerween, and then I felt a little bit stilted this month as far as my reading goes. It was kind of a weird transitional month. I think I read 11, no. I'm in the process of finishing like 3 books at this moment. So they're probably going to make it on my next month's wrap up. 9. I read 9 books this month. I completed 9 books this month, which is fine. I mean, I don't need to read 15 books a month. 9 is totally fine. I'm cool with that. I'm going to save the Summerween books for last because I think some of you have probably already seen me talk about these in my Summerween vlogs, and I'll link those up above if you're interested in seeing that. Let's talk about the first book that I read aside from that, and that was The Therapist by B.A. Paris. I was really looking forward to this book because, well, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with B.A. Paris. I really love Behind Closed Doors, but she does have a couple books that were more drama and less thrillery that I wasn't too into. I think it was a solid thriller. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. This is a domestic psychological thriller, and we're following Alice and Leo, and they are a new-ish couple. They move in together, and they end up buying this house in this kind of secluded cul-de-sac. Everyone in this that lives in this cul-de-sac are very close. Denny, you're gonna have to Alice, once she's already moved in, she finds out that there was a woman that was killed in this house, and the woman, Nina, was a therapist, and so she begins trying to unravel what happened, and she's disturbed by the fact that she's living in this house where a woman died. She becomes almost obsessed with it. She starts digging a little bit deeper and questioning the neighbors, and they are all very standoffish about it. So that's the general concept of this book. I thought the pacing was a little bit slow in the middle. I didn't necessarily like our protagonist, Alice. She was a little bit annoying at times. There were several red herrings in this. There's 3 or 4 twists at the end that got me, which I appreciated. And then when the final twist came, I felt like an idiot because I didn't even think of it. I think that's a me thing. I think other people may be quicker to catch on that than I was, but it did get me, so I appreciated that. Overall, I felt like it was suspenseful. I had a lot of fun trying to figure out who the killer was. And that's what these kind of books are about, just in your head, going back and forth. Who could it be? Who could it be? Trying to put the clues together. That's the fun of it for me anyway. So while there were a few things that I didn't love about this, I feel like it was kind of a middle of the road for B.A. Paris, and I do recommend it still. I think it was a solid thriller. It just didn't blow my mind. The next book I want to talk about is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. And this one I buddy read with Kristen from Kristen is Fully Booked. I'm gonna link her channel down below and probably up above. Check her out. She doesn't have enough subscribers for the quality of channel that she's putting out. She reads a lot of fantasy. I don't know how many fantasy readers I have left following me since I've been kind of obsessing over thrillers lately. But if you like fantasy, absolutely check out her channel. She's a yoga instructor. She lives in Denmark. She's a Canadian. She lives in Denmark. So she has a really unique perspective. She's great. We had to do a lot of work to get our communication timeline together because she is in Denmark. So we had a 7-hour time difference. So, but we came up with a schedule, worked it out. It was so much fun getting to hang out with her while I read this. I love buddy reads. Oh my gosh, I love buddy reads. I feel like it's a really good way to be able to talk to somebody while you're reading and delving into some of these concepts on a deeper level than you wouldn't necessarily reflect upon by yourself. I just had so much fun with it. The Space Between Worlds I originally had started and not DNF'd, but just kind of set down and not finished. It is a sci-fi. We're following Kara, and she is lucky and unlucky because in this world, multiverse travel is possible. It's kind of a dystopian type setup where you have the wastelands where everyone that lives there is just dirt poor, and then you have Wily City, which is like basically commentary on the 1%, where they have all of the wealth, and then everyone in the wastelands is poor, rural, and tend to be more religious, while Wily City is this metropolis of people that are thriving. Kara is from the wastelands, but she wants to be a Wily City citizen. If she can do that, she can basically secure her future. In this world, multiverse travel is possible, but you cannot be alive in the other version of the world that you are entering. And Kara's unique perspective is that she is really good at dying. All of her counter selves in all the multiverses that they know of that are most similar to their world, most of them are dead. And so she has the opportunity to work for Eldridge Institute and become a traveler, a traverser through the world. She meets Dell, who is kind of like her supervisor. Then she finds out that her doppelgangers are not just dying at this point. She only has like a few left. They're getting murdered. And so she starts to investigate what's happening. She starts to go against the rules that are set up for her in order to advance her own curiosity. From that, it just kind of unravels into this epic adventure. I just loved the writing in this book. Micaiah Johnson, this is her debut novel, and I thought her writing was so poignant and beautiful. A lot of times I was a little bit confused as far as the sci-fi elements go, the multiverse travel, the science of it. It is kind of high sci-fi, I guess. I don't even know. It was so beautifully written. This book really is an examination of identity, of privilege, of belonging. And if you're into sci-fi in the least, I would recommend this to you. I thought it was so much fun. There's a lot of representation. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of discussion about life, faith, gender, societal norms. I'd love to read more from Micaiah Johnson, so the next book she comes out with, I'm happy to read. I had so much fun reading this book, and I'm so glad I got to buddy read it with Kristen. So the next book I read was Lexicon by Max Barry. This is a little bit of an older book. I think it came out, 2013. I had been recommended this on Storygraph, and then I saw Ashley at Ashley's Little Library talked about how she loved this book. And that kind of spurred me to actually go ahead and read it. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about what it's about. So the story is about poets, but it's not poets in the traditional sense. So there's this school in Virginia, and they teach kids about the art of persuasion, the art of coercion. And it basically takes this idea of words, hence the lexicon, and how you say them to certain personality types and which words you use. And it's a perfect science that explains wizardry and all magic. It makes it a science, makes it real life. And I know that sounds kind of weird because it's not fantasy. This is not a fantasy book. I really don't know what you would call this genre. If it's sci-fi, if it's fantasy, actually, I'm not even really sure. It's very genre bending. So basically you have however many different personality types. They study these personality types. They identify which one each person is with a sequence of questions that they have put together specifically to figure this out. And people that are good at this, at deciphering personality types, can learn certain words that will force those people to listen to whatever you say, basically. It's very high concept, points for concept, for originality. I thought the exploration of that idea in general was so much fun for me. I really loved the first part of the book where we're following our protagonist as she's training in this school. It does have kind of like a superhero vibe to it because you have this underdog who is recruited for this position, taken to this school, given the opportunity to live a better life, and then kind of rages against the system, starts to undermine the authorities that be, ends up like a rogue, basically. The story is very high action. It's very plot heavy. If you are a character-driven reader, if you need that atmosphere, then this may not be the book for you. Honestly, I don't even know what some of these characters looked like. And it was a little long, but I did enjoy it. It gets absolute points for originality. I've never read a story like this. I thought it was so cool. It was such a different take. This idea of this mashup between superpowers and the spoken word. So I thought it was really cool. And for readers in general, I think that's something that's powerful as it is, and it explores that power of words. I gave it 3 stars. I was a little bit lacking on the atmosphere, on the characterization. I felt like it was a little bit slow in the middle. Like I said, the training part just had me absolutely enthralled from the beginning to basically the middle, and then there was a part of the book there where I was like, okay, what's happening? Where is this going? What's going on? And then in the end, I did like the ending. So I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. I do recommend this if this is something you might be interested in. You know, Max Barry, I'll probably check out some more of his stuff just because of just the concept of this book. I just thought it was so different and so well thought out. So yeah, I probably would read him again. The next book I want to talk about, ooh, yay, is a reread. So the first time I read this book, I remembered liking it, but then I couldn't remember any of the details about it. And I kept hearing everyone talking about it, saying how it's so gruesome and it's so out there and it's so amazing. And I was like, well, I don't even remember reading this. How could it be that good if I didn't remember it? So I decided to reread Pretty Girls by Karin. And I don't know what I was thinking the first time I read this, if I was just in a slump or not really paying attention or what. As I started reading it, I started remembering the plot. And I actually think this is really cool for a reread because I knew certain things that I remembered, certain twists as I got into it. I was able to see the red herrings and the foreshadowing that I probably didn't pick up on the first time I read this. My God, this book is so good. I love Karin. I've since picked up a couple more of her books, and I can't wait to keep reading her stuff. And people are right. It is extra gory. It is not gory, but disturbing in a psychological way. Okay, so you have Claire, Lydia. Is it Lydia? Yeah, that's right. Claire, Lydia, and Julia. 3 sisters. They grew up together, but when Julia was 17 or 18, maybe she was older, I think she was in college, she disappeared 20 years ago. And so now we're left with Lydia and Claire, and they are not speaking. They haven't spoken in 20 years or in however many years, because of what went down and why their sister disappeared, and her body was never found. They never caught whoever took her or whatever. They don't know what happened to her. It's torn their family apart. Their family is in shambles. Their father handled it very poorly. Their mother is kind of just not fully there anymore. They can't rely on her. She's just kind of checked out. Claire and Lydia have a chance re-encounter, and they start unraveling things about their past. They start connecting to each other again. They start figuring out that a girl that has now gone missing in present day may in fact be connected to their sister's disappearance in the past, and they delve deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole. They're all pretty girls, right? Hence the name of the book. Lydia at this point has, when her sister went missing, she got into drugs and alcohol, and she kind of went off the deep end, and it took her a really long time to get her life back together. So now she's a little bit overweight. She is, she's struggling with life things. Not just that, but, she's pushing herself every day to make her life better for her and her daughter. She has a high school age daughter. And then you have Claire, who's married rich, but she's very much the kept wife sort of deal. She lives the high life, right? And so Lydia thinks that Claire is a snob and that she hasn't had to work for anything that she has. And Claire thinks that Lydia is just a hot mess. And they end up having to work together to solve both of these cases, and my God, it's so good. It's so enthralling. It keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. I loved every minute of this book. I had so much fun with it. It was disturbing. It was so disturbing, y'all. But listen, if you can handle it, it's so well done. So well done. And Karin Slaughter is not afraid to go there, and I just loved it so much. Absolute 5-star read. Highly recommend to literally anyone. If you haven't read this book yet, do it. You're not going to regret it. You're being good. You're being a good boy. The next book I finished this month was The Plot by Hanff Korelitz. I think that's German, French. I don't even know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Jean, I don't know. I've heard mixed reviews about this. I've heard some people didn't quite like it. Some people loved it. So I went into this as open-minded as I possibly could. And I ended up really enjoying this. I gave it 4 stars. We're following this writer, Jake, and he's published 3 or 4 books. One of them did pretty well, but now he's kind of washed up and he's teaching at this school for writing called Ripley. He's kind of looking back at his life and thinking, where did I go wrong? Like, why am I not living my best life right now? Why am I not famous? One of his students ends up revealing to him this plot that is the most amazing plot in the world. This guy is so cocky. He is so unlikable, but he's got this plot, and he ends up telling Jake about it, and Jake cannot deny that even if you were the shittiest writer out there,
this plot would sell millions. This book would be on Oprah's book club. This book would be on the first shelf in every bookstore.
Everyone and their mom would read this book because it's the most original plot ever, and it's a thriller, and the twist is so insane. So years pass, and he is always thinking about this plot, and then one day he hears that the student had died pretty much right after the class. He decides to take this plot for himself, and he publishes it, and of course, blows up. Then one day he starts getting harassing emails or notifications on social media, on Twitter. Somebody knows that this isn't his story and they're trying to extort him. So that's the general concept of this. Will he get away with it? Will he not get away with it? Who is this person that knows? How do they know? Being a person that is not good at figuring out the twists, I figured this out relatively early, probably about halfway through the book. And I think that's why some people aren't necessarily loving this, because they figured it out too. But hear me out, because I think you're supposed to figure it out. Because if I can figure it out, I think you're supposed to. And the fun of this book isn't trying to figure out who it is, which is normally the case, but it's actually trying to figure out how it's going to play out. Trying to decide who you're rooting for. Who are you rooting for in this case? The story's told alternating chapters between the actual text of this book, Crib, which is the famous plot. So we're getting chapters of that dispersed in between, following our main character, Jake, on his journey through this. I was really interested to see if this plot and this twist were actually as good as it claimed to be, because the whole time in my head I'm like, there's only 7 stories that can be told ever, just variations of 7 stories. How can this be so original that him taking it is going to cause any kind of ruckus? But I was impressed by it. And I do think it's a story that I've never read. So I thought that was interesting. I really liked how this book ended, and not even talking about the twist, but I'm talking about just the way the book ended. I thought was refreshing compared to most of the thrillers that I read. I gave it 4 stars. I recommend this book. I really liked it. If you like unlikable characters, if you like kind of that dual POV of being told the story and then another story within a story, if you will. It's almost Shakespearean, or at the very least meta. If you like a revenge plot, I would say this fits into that. I thought the pacing was really great too. So it wasn't like super fast, but I thought the way he moved through time was, I'm assuming this is a male, I should say they. The way they moved through time was really well done. So I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so let's now get to my Summerween books that I read. I read 4 books for Summerween. I should say I completed 4 books for Summerween. Another one that I'm actually still reading is Butter by Erin Jade Lang, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish this by tomorrow. What is today? Today's the 30th. I still have like 200 pages so far, and I am. I do wanna finish this, so hopefully we'll get this in next month's wrap up as well. I also read No Exit by Taylor Adams. This book was shockingly surprising to me. I don't know how many people I've heard say, read this book, it's so good, it's one of the best thrillers, it's amazing, this and that, and just gush about this thriller. And I never once, for whatever reason, the concept or description of this book never stood out to me, never made me want to pick it up. But I finally did, and I'm so glad I did. I gave this book 5 stars. I thought it was awesome. It was very high action, but you also get plot and character in this. The twist at the very end, I had to re-listen to because I was just like,
did that just happen? What just happened? What's happening right now?
So it definitely got me excited. It made me gasp out loud, which is a clear sign of loving a thriller. I'm not going to get too far into these because if you want to, you can watch my Summerween vlogs and I will give you more in-depth detail about those there. We're following our protagonist. She's trying to head home because her mother is sick and dying, but she gets caught in this snowstorm and she's at a rest stop with like 4 or 5 other people. She goes outside to try to get reception on her phone and she sees a child locked in a cage in one of their cars. The story goes on from there. Loved it, highly recommend. Next, I read The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is a horror book. It's following this group of Boy Scouts that are on this island, so another closed circle deal. They and their troop leader out there doing Boy Scouty stuff, and this guy pulls up in this boat, and he's so emaciated. Looks so sick. He just keeps saying he's hungry, so hungry, so hungry. He needs food. And so they're like, well, should we help this guy? Like, we don't have any contact with anyone else. We're on this island. Should we help him or not? And they're like, we're Boy Scouts. We have to help him. Like, that's our duty. The scout leader tries to do his best to isolate him from the boys, not put the boys in any danger. Whatever this guy has, it's contagious. He just keeps eating anything. He starts eating sand. Any inanimate object, just has to eat it. Just has to eat it. I was so grossed out. Don't get me wrong. It's disgusting. Okay, I guess I should warn you guys. This book is disgusting. Like absolutely disgusting, and not in a bloody gory way, but in a, I mean, kind of in a bloody gore way, but not like you would think of like a slasher or something like that. In the details of what's wrong with this man and what's happening to his body on the inside and out. Ugh, I don't want to give anything away, but it's fucking gross. Okay, it's fucking gross, so go in prepared. But despite my disgust, I cannot deny Nick Cutter's writing was so immaculate and so well done. And we go back and forth between what's happening on this island, and then we get information from local newspaper clippings, from a court transcript, from after the fact, where they are interviewing these scientists to figure out where this came from, where this disease came from, how it got started. Anyway, I really liked this too. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 or 4 stars. I don't quite remember, but maybe 3 stars. I started out just like disgusted with this, and by the end of the book, I just couldn't deny it was a really good book, and I did enjoy myself. I did get connected to these characters, got my heart ripped out, so I would recommend this. The next book I read is Tender as the Flesh. This is by Augustina Bazterrica. As Augustina Bazterrica? Again, I apologize, Augustina. I'm sorry. This book I gave 5 stars. I think it was so good. It's a very short book. It might even be considered a novella. It's called Tender as the Flesh, and it's written in a classic dystopian style. If you like 1984, Fahrenheit 451. What, dude? Brave New World, Animal Farm, these type of like classic dystopians and you also want a flair for the disgusting, and this one is kind of bloody and gory in that disgusting type sense, pick up this book. There's so much social commentary in this, and I love a social commentary in the books that I'm reading because I want to hear stories that are about something but talk about something else, and this absolutely does that. And in this dystopia, humans can't eat animal meat anymore because the animals all have some kind of disease that it kills us, right? We have built an entire new society in which we eat human meat and we manufacture human meat as if it were animal meat. And it's kind of like nobody talks about it. It's like, oh, you know, it's just how it is, you know, this stuff's good. But everything that we do to our meat in this world, they do to the humans there. And it really forces you to look at how we treat animals. It makes you think about the things that happen behind the scenes and how we dissociate from that and how we're so far removed from that it's really easy to just, you know, open your package of beef or chicken or whatever and just cook it up and not even think about where that came from. When it's being directly associated with humans, it's makes it so impactful and so disturbing to think about. Augustina has delved so deep into this subject, like so many details about like what they call them. They're called heads, like cattle. The females who are meant to reproduce, they just cut off their arms and legs because they don't need those anymore. They're not necessary. Their tongues are cut out so that they can't speak. They never learn to speak. They're feral. They end up being raised and grown, but there are certain ones who, if they had a name before, then it's like goes on the black market, and that's the like really pricey stuff that you can, like politicians and people would get for like a big party or something. You can keep like an entire body in your house, in your freezer, and that's like very pricey. Just stuff like that where it's like, oh my God, this is like, people do this to animals. But if you think about it, relating it to humans, it's so disturbing. I just can't tell you how good this book is. Absolutely read this because it's so poignant. It's just really well done. Just really, really thoughtfully and well done. What else do we have? I feel like I'm like just blabbering today. I'm sorry. Okay, so the last book I'm going to talk about is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I did give Grady Hendrix another chance, and I read My Best Friend's Exorcism, and I really enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I can't deny, again, Grady Hendrix's character writing is top-notch. He writes female characters very well. There was a bit of gaslighting in this that, you know, got to me with the Southern Book Club as well, but I didn't feel like it was gratuitous like it was in Southern Book Club, so I could handle it. I loved where he took this story. He is slightly redeemed in my eyes. Now, I still have a couple more of his books that I want to read. I want to read Horror Store, and I do want to read the new one that came out, The Last Girl, what the hell is it called? Final Girl Support Group. So I'm kind of still on the fence about Grady Hendrix, but I cannot deny, just gonna say it, it was a good book, and it's pretty self-descriptive. It's about two best friends, and it follows them from when they're little until they're teenagers, and one of them needs an exorcism. It ends on such a hopeful, joyful note, and the story of this girl's friendship is really what this is about. So those are all the books I'm going to talk about today. I do want to talk about something I've been thinking about doing for my future wrap-up videos, and so let me know if you guys are interested in doing this too. I mean, if you want to do it with me, you can. I don't know, if it's not really a thing, it's just an idea. By the time I get to the end of the month, if I didn't take notes on what I've been reading, I forget the details of the stories, and it becomes kind of a bigger deal than it needs to be to recap all of the books that I've read. So my idea for the month of August that I'm going to try out is every time I finish a book, I'm going to film myself and I'm going to talk about it. That way I get a fresh perspective. I don't have to write down details. I don't have to remember all of the details. So I think by the end of the month of August, I'll have kind of this mashup of me talking about the books I've read, and it's going to be in better detail, and hopefully it'll be better for you all for the information that you're looking for when you come to these videos. It's something that I'm going to try. Let me know if you guys are interested in trying it too. If you want to do it with me, we can all do it together. That's all I have for today. As always, I appreciate you if you're still with me. Don't forget that life is short. So read widely, cheers, and goodbye.